Now, the general weather around Alaska.
Welcome, everyone, to Alaska Statewide Weather. I'm meteorologist Peter Chan, coming to you from the National Weather Service in Alaska region on this Thursday, October 9th. And we have a lot to talk about. We are in a very stormy pattern that is going to continue into next week. The current storm, the first in a series, is now pushing off of the Arctic coast and beginning to weaken. So winds, surf, and water levels will be coming down as we go through tonight, and certainly be more typical here along the west coast for Friday. That'll be kind of the calm before the next storm. We do have a storm force low in front currently out toward the western Aleutians. This occluded front arcing ahead of it has produced some storm force winds today into at least early this Thursday night. But more importantly, over the weekend, a powerful storm, the remnants of Typhoon Halong, will be tracking from the North Pacific across the central Aleutians around noontime Saturday, and then intensify as it lifts up towards St. Matthew Island, and it will have storm and hurricane force winds with it, which will lead to high surf and coastal flooding. And if that's not enough, there's yet another potential for a stronger storm that could impact areas of the southwest coast, especially Kuskokwim and Bristol Bays, Monday evening into Wednesday. So looking at a few of the FAA webcams up there along the northwest Chukchi coast, Wainwright, partly sunny 34. You can kind of see the surf in the background there. Things are beginning to come down. Kivalina, mostly cloudy 37. You can see the surf there. Nothing like what it was last night into earlier this morning. Nome, overcast 40 degrees. You are going to be in for some very stormy weather on Sunday. That remnants of the typhoon will be situated tracking up through the center of the low, up through St. Matthew to maybe around St. Lawrence Island. So that places Nome in a perfect spot to take the brunt of the southwest storm and hurricane force winds. So stay tuned to later forecasts. You could be dealing with high winds and coastal flooding. Emonic down along the outer Yukon coast, also another potential trouble spot for later Saturday night into Sunday, as those strong winds, which will generate high surf and the potential for coastal flooding and beach erosion, will exist there along the lower Yukon coast and then push all that water up into Norton Sound. 46 degrees there this afternoon. So on this map, we have a couple of winter weather advisories in effect in the higher terrain above Fairbanks there, the Elliott Highway summits and White Mountains, and then we also have around Anatuvik Pass, and as that moisture comes up along the central eastern Arctic coast there, Beaufort Sea coast, around new exit to Demarcation Bay, there could be a couple inches of snow and blowing snow, especially as we get into later tomorrow night and Friday. Now here along the west coast, we still have some coastal flood warnings in effect. I'm going to go to this map. There's a coastal flood warning still in effect from east of Utqiagvik down to Point Hope until 4 a.m. Friday. Even though winds are coming down, wave heights and water levels are coming down these areas. We have a new coastal flood watch for this area of the west coast from Point Hope down through Kivalina around Kotzebue Sound, the entire Seward Peninsula coastline, including Norton Sound, all the way down through the lower Yukon. And then we also have high wind watches in effect for the area from the northern Seward Peninsula coastline down through Wales, Teller, Nome, all along Norton Sound, and down here in the lower coast, Yukon coastline, as well as St. Lawrence Island. You're going to see some really strong southerly winds develop in this region, especially Saturday evening and into Sunday, lingering potentially even into Monday morning in the more northern areas. But the most important thing is this area along the outer Yukon coast, up into Nome, toward Gullivan, and especially eastern portion of St. Lawrence Island, we could be looking at a sustained higher-end storm force winds with gust into hurricane force, which would generate large waves, considerable surf, and the potential for some significant coastal flooding. So you're going to want to stay tuned for future warnings and advisories as a result of the storm. We still have some high pressure out here over the Gulf, North Pacific, bringing quiet weather, panhandle along the Gulf Coast. But to the north, this is that weakening first storm. And as that peels away tonight, conditions are going to be improving, not just across the north, but along the west coast, already quieting down. We have another low out here toward the southwestern Bering Sea with an occluded front pushing into the central Aleutians around Adak. This has had storm force winds today that may linger into early this Thursday night. And as that front comes north and eastward, it will have a tendency to lose some of its punch. We still have low pressure out here in northwest Canada, weak front into the northern Gulf, and then as the other low, the initial first storm retreats, what's left of it, we just find some areas of lighter snow showers up there along areas of the northwest and Arctic coast. But here, this low, pretty deep, around 961 millibars on Friday afternoon. The front does arc ahead up into the eastern Aleutians, lower Alaska Peninsula out toward the Pribilovs and St. Matthew, Nunavik Island. There'll be some rain showers with this. Keep in mind, this is a mild system. There's not a ton of cold air and coming up from the North Pacific, where we do have above normal water temperatures. This is Friday afternoon, but the remnants of the Typhoon Halong is located off the bottom of your screen, and then come Saturday, there it is, crossing the central Aleutians probably shortly afternoon into the early afternoon, and then this low is going to deepen from 975 probably down to somewhere around 945 as it crosses St. Matthew later Saturday night and early on Sunday morning. And this system will have a lot of wind with it. Here it is come Sunday afternoon as it lifts northeast of St. Matthew toward St. Lawrence Island, and this places the outer Yukon coast and the area within Norton Sound and along the southern western area of the Seward coastline up through the Bering Strait in a bad position. Because very, very high winds along with high surf, high seas, and that's going to generate the potential for coastal flooding as these water levels come on in, especially with the high tide. So heed any future warnings or advisories that are issued here as we go through the weekend. And if that's not enough, energy will swing out of the western Bering and link up with another piece of energy coming out of the North Pacific. And guess what? We're going to have another strong storm head toward the southwest coast as we go into Monday night, Tuesday, and Wednesday. But by Monday afternoon, we have a low in the lower Chukchi Sea, so areas of especially Kotzebue Sound up to around the Lisburn Peninsula could also get in on some high waves, high winds, and coastal flooding as a result of that configuration. So looking at temperatures coming up the next couple of days, lows will be below freezing along the Brooks Range, North Slope, Arctic coast Friday morning. Areas, pockets below freezing here in areas of the interior. Still 40s in through the Panhandle, and as you trail out down along the Alaska Peninsula and into the Aleutians. Friday afternoon, got readings upper 40s near 50 around Anchorage. 50s as you go out along the Alaska Peninsula, mid 50s into the Aleutians, because again, this mild air is going to be coming northeastward. Still 50s, maybe a 60-degree reading around Craig or Klawak. In the far north Brooks Range, temperatures stay below freezing, generally mid-upper 20s, and just above freezing along the Arctic coast. For Saturday morning, we do find perhaps single digits there. Arctic Village around 9 above, 10, 11 degrees, Anatuvik Pass, 20s along the Arctic coast. 20s fairly numerous across the central eastern interior with some teens in the upper Copper River Basin and toward McCarthy. And then out here along the Panhandle, generally mid-30s to around 40 degrees. And then off to the west here, we do have temperatures that remain in the 40s to near 50 degrees, lower Alaska Peninsula up toward Dutch Harbor. And then Saturday afternoon, as that low crosses the central Aleutians, a warm front is going to be pulled northeastward. And Saturday afternoon or evening, could possibly see a few temperatures near 60 degrees here as we get out along the Alaska Peninsula, especially southwest of Chiknik down through False Pass, Cold Bay. Some relatively mild temperatures, but very windy conditions, at least storm force winds, and that low will only intensify as it heads just west of the Pribilovs towards St. Matthew Island Saturday night into Sunday morning, where it will likely be at its deepest. So as we look ahead here through mid-month and just beyond, October 15th through the 19th, no real change in this temperature forecast. The entire state is looking to have above normal temperatures, and guess what? The centering, the most likely region being across the central and southwest mainland, which implies we're going to continue to see systems coming up out of the North Pacific into the Bering, which allows warmer, moist air to be pulled northward. So active weather patterns can likely continue through mid-month. And you guessed it, above normal precipitation areas of the west coast extending into the southwest, west central interior, all along and north and west of the Alaska Range, up through the middle Yukon River and up through the southern slopes of the Brooks Range. And this would include Kotzebue Sound, Norton Sound, and again, all along the Yukon and Kuskokwim rivers there. So this is going to be a wet pattern. It's not one that supports a lot of snow because these storms have mild temperatures coming northeastward. So this will continue to bring wet and windy conditions. And again, if the storm is strong enough, that could include the threat of coastal flooding. So stay tuned to later forecast in the week ahead into next weekend because it's going to be a very active weather period from time to time.